Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of Hog Roundup with Jacob Morris. Another jam-packed show for you today. We start off talking softball. It's regional week. Second baseman Karlie Davison joins the show. We talk the mindset of the team as well as a couple other things. It's a fun interview. I think you'll really enjoy it. Afterwards, Ty Richardson, you know him well, ESPN Arkansas. He joins to talk a little bit about the Diamond Hogs. He was down in Baton Rouge. He watched the Tigers take 2 of 3 from the Hogs. He joins to talk all things baseball. That's coming up on the Hog Roundup. Enjoy. All right, now joining the Hog Roundup, a very special guest, Arkansas softball's Karlie Davison. Karlie, thanks so much for joining the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, let's hop into it. Big time week for you guys. Just team mindset heading into regionals here, postseason play. Began with the SEC tournament last week in Athens, but now the real thing is here. Where's the team at heading into regionals this week?
Yeah, I would just say we are really excited. Obviously not the outcome that we wanted in the SEC tournament, but I still feel really good about where we're at. And now the real thing begins, as you said. So I think we're just taking that momentum into this week and focusing on one game at a time.
Kind of on that note, obviously Oklahoma didn't go the way anybody wanted, but you and I think it was Kaylee, right? Post game talked a little bit about while the result was not how anybody painted it, there were lots of positives obviously to take from that. What can you take from the SEC tournament experience and apply to the NCAA tournament coming up here?
Yeah, I think it was a really good test heading into postseason, just because we played a few of the top 8 seed teams. So we were tested, and I think it proved to ourselves, even though we already knew that we can hang with anyone, and we're very capable of beating people if we do what we need to do. So I think it was a great setup for this upcoming weekend.
I think, you're going to get tested no matter where you play in the SEC, but Coach Difel's talked a lot about just the slate you guys have played is ridiculous. And when you kind of start going down the national seeds and you see who you guys have beaten, who you guys have competed with, on that note, how much of a confidence boost is that for you when you say, hey, we went to the number 1 overall seed and we took a series there. We went to the number 3 overall seed, took a series from there. You go down the line, you guys are battle tested and then some. How much confidence does that give you heading into regionals here?
Yeah, it gives us a ton of confidence just knowing that when we do what we can control and play our game, that we're capable of beating anyone in the country. Yeah, we played a really tough SEC schedule, and some people might say, "Oh, they'll be tired for postseason," but I think we are really prepared for anything that comes our way.
Absolutely. You transfer in from Utah this offseason. You've got to see firsthand the Arkansas fan base, just how crazy Bogle can get. How excited are you for a postseason opportunity at Bogle? You've seen it for SEC series, but now, having postseason play in Fayetteville, how excited are you for that?
I'm so excited. Well, like you said, just the environment in the regular season was unbelievable. I had never been a part of anything like that. And so obviously these games mean a little bit more. So I'm excited just for the intensity of the crowd and whatever that brings. I'm really excited.
Yeah, Bogle should be electric for that. It's going to be a lot of fun come Friday. For you personally, what made Arkansas an attractive destination for you? You obviously you had the Coach Gasso connection and all of that, but when you kind of entered your name into the portal, what made Arkansas say, hey, that's an option for me and somewhere I could potentially call home?
Yeah, obviously Coach Gasso was a huge factor. He was the one that recruited me, and I just already had a really great relationship with him. And so that was the number one thing that made me think of Arkansas really highly. And then when I came on my visit here and just got to interact with the coaches and kind of see what they were all about, it left no doubt in my mind that this is where I wanted to be. I knew that they wanted to go far this year, and I wanted to be a part of just a winning culture and one that really feels like family. Everyone always says that about Arkansas, but I could really feel that from the moment I got here.
It seems like that's kind of the number one go-to with everybody talking about the coaching staff. What to you about Coach Difel kind of spoke to that as well in terms of making it feel like a place that, just feels like home, like you said?
Yeah, I think, she's really special, and she's just such a great coach. And from the moment that I first got on the phone with her, it felt like I had known her forever. And so it really eased me into that crazy time of being in the recruiting process all over again. And I could tell that she really cared about me. as a person, and that she was interested in what I could bring to the table on the field, but also off the field. So that just made me feel really valued as a person, um, regardless of how much I could contribute on the field. So she's just incredible, and I'm really, really grateful to play for her.
You have such a fascinating family background with just, it seems like everybody in your family, connections to baseball, all the above. For people that don't know, explain, both of your grandpas, your dad, all of this stuff, and, how that's kind of helped you get to where you're at in terms of the softball field.
Yeah, I mean, they're awesome, and from the moment that I could walk, I was swinging a bat in the house just with my dad. But I think what's really unique about my family situation is that there was never any added pressure for me to do really well or play in college. They always wanted it to be fun for me, and it was fun for me, and it has never not been fun. So I'm grateful for that. But also, my dad was my coach until maybe I was 8 years old. But then after that, he kind of let go of the reins and was there when I needed him and would come to him, but he never was making me hit in the cages or do extra work. He always wanted me to initiate that. And so I think that was a big turning point in my success growing up, was that like it was always fun for me, and he was just there when I needed him and wanted to hit with him. And obviously he's just super knowledgeable about the game, and we have a lot of fun debriefing the games and my at bats, and he's a really helpful tool. But like I said, he never overstepped. So
I was going to say, I think that's about as good of a resource as somebody could have in terms of being able to break down some at bats and such. Shifted back to Arkansas here a little bit. I talked with Reagan a couple of weeks ago just about how fun it is to play with Brie Ellis, and obviously, she's getting all of the accolades as she should be, and playing in the infield with her, playing on the same team with her. Describe what that experience has been like this season to kind of see that firsthand and just all of the success that she has had.
yeah, it was really an honor to play with to play with Brie Ellis. One, just that big of a name that obviously is, she's everywhere. But also just to know her as a person. I think a lot of the times when you get that much attention, maybe it can get to your head and you can become like kind of self-consumed, but she's done the exact opposite and has really just continued to celebrate our team success and other people's individual success. So I think that's been really cool to see how she's handled
Yeah.
success and failure. But in the infield, it's a lot of fun. We have fun playing next to each other. Yeah, it's cool to learn from her and to get to watch her really work hard in the fall all throughout this season and for it to pay off.
She's always so quick to credit teammates first. It's very humble. It's impressive the way she goes about that. So I'll give you the floor. If you had to make the pitch for Brie Ellis for being the National Player of the Year, what would it be?
I mean, oh my gosh. She I think one of the most impressive parts of her game is honestly her defense, and I think her offensive numbers are actually they're insane. Anyone with any knowledge of the sport could see her numbers and be like, okay, that is a very good candidate for the National Player of the Year. But I think there's so many intangibles about her that make her stand out from the rest, and just her hustle in the field. We always talk about how she had this one hustle double at Tennessee where she popped up the ball and ended up like diving headfirst into second base, which was just really fun. Um, and yeah, her defense is incredible. We've seen glimpses of that. So just what she adds on the field, um, on top of the offensive numbers in the toughest conference in the country is really impressive. Yeah, we faced just about everyone in the country, pitching wise, and she's had success against the best of them. So I don't know how you can beat that.
She should hire you as a campaign manager. That's a pretty good pitch right there. We'll clip that and send that out. You mentioned defense there, and I think that's something that's so interesting about your guys' team, because obviously offensively with Bree and a whole other just wide variety of pieces, the offense, the hitting gets a lot of attention, but specifically you guys in the infield with Ella, Atalia, Bree, you guys are turning plays like nobody else. Just how much fun in the infield defensively as a whole has this team been for you guys this year?
Yeah, I feel like our defense has kind of gone under the radar. We make the routine plays and also some of the spectacular plays in the outfield, and Ella's made a few, Tal's made a few. Yeah, it's really fun to play with them. Um, but I think that's something I take a lot of pride in is just our defense because we're able to turn double plays and give the pitchers confidence that if the ball's put in play, that we're going to take care of it. So I think that's a big part of our game that goes unnoticed, maybe just because of how dominant our offense and pitching is. But yeah, our defense is great.
I think it's a good way to put it. You make the routine ones, then the not so routine ones. It was you, right, who made the tip drill play with Brie earlier this year, right? That was you. Can you
Yes.
walk me through just how that went? Because that was one of the most ridiculous plays I've ever seen off of Brie's glove, and then you make the diving catch.
Yeah, in practice we talk a lot or we practice a lot with the wind and the wind balls and dealing with that. And so off the bat, we I knew the wind was blowing and in hindsight, I probably should have called her off. And I talked about with the coaches that maybe that I should have just called her off because I saw the wind drifting the ball towards my direction. But I was just there ready in case anything happened and it happened to tip off her glove and it was just a matter of reaction. Um, but it was really fun, and I'm glad I got to have Breeze back in that moment because she's had my back in so many ways. So, yeah, it was fun, but obviously not ideal.
Her reaction was hilarious to that. When she realized she caught it, she just grabbed you, started hugging you. It was awesome. Shifted back here to the week that you guys have ahead. You know, it's going to boil down to a lot more than one thing, obviously, right? For you guys to move on and to potentially host the Super and move on past that. But for you guys, you know, if I'm to say, you know, Arkansas plays well and they advance in a regional, what does it boil down to for you guys? What are you focused on this week with regionals on deck and, you know, areas of emphasis for you guys heading into the week?
Mhm. Well, I think just like I said earlier, focusing on one game at a time. I think playing a 4 seed first, maybe it could be easy to overlook that game and focus on who you may have next. But I think for us, the important thing is just to play consistently our game, no matter who's in the other dugout. So honestly, pretending like we're playing a Tennessee or an Oklahoma every single game, because that's when we play our best, is when we're really focused. Um, and know we have to bring our best. So I would say that's the main thing is just focusing on what we have to do well and what we can control, not getting outside of ourselves and worrying about the next game. And I think practically that just looks like having good at bats and swinging at strikes, and the rest will take care of itself. Um, but yeah, that's what I would say.
What gives you confidence to say, you know, hey, this is the group that, you know, can put it together here and, you know, advance to where we want to advance to?
Yeah, I think just our depth in the circle is really great. Um, Up and down the lineup. If one person's having a bad game, um, usually there's not two or three people strung in a row that are off. Like I think we can pick each other up well. Um, like for example, in the game against Tennessee, like Reagan Kramer hitting a grand slam, like no one probably could have called that, but there's so many people in our lineup that can have a really big day and impact the game, just like that with one swing of the bat. So I think we don't necessarily have to rely on one or two people to be on in order to win games. And like we were talking about earlier, our defense is solid. So if all three facets of the game are going well for us, then we'll take care of business.
In terms of getting to Oklahoma City potentially, it's one game at a time for you guys, right? But that's obviously, you know, the mountaintop that everybody talks about with this program, getting there for the first time. What would it mean to you, mean to this team to be the group that kind of, you know, gets over that hurdle and gets to OKC and, you know, goes to where this program thinks it can go?
Yeah, it would be really cool just with knowing that the Arkansas softball has never been. It would be a really cool thing to be the first. Anything done for the first time is really special. But I think we also know that we have the talent to be there, and so anything short of that would be kind of heartbreaking. And so I think it would be really special um, to go there because we think we can easily be there if we just take care of business.
Well, the road starts this weekend, Friday night, for the Razorbacks taking on St. Louis in Game 1 of the Fayetteville Regional. That is Karlie Davison, second baseman for the Bogle Bombers. Karlie, thanks so much for joining the show.
Thank you so much.
All right, you know him. ESPN Arkansas's Ty Richardson joins the Hog Roundup now. And Ty, you were boots on the ground in Baton Rouge for a disappointing series for the Diamond Hogs. Arkansas, after sweeping Texas for the first time in program history, hits the road and takes one, avoids the first sweep since 2023, but falls to, I guess I should say, drops 2 out of 3 to LSU. Your perspective, boots on the ground in Baton Rouge, what was that like, and what did you take away from the weekend?
Well, you think about how game 1, you lose in extra innings where you had bases loaded. It could have gone your way. Game 2, they just destroyed you, whatever. Yeah. And then game 3, you rallied and responded. I had it posed to me by a coworker. I mean, you really lost this series by 1 run.
Yeah.
That's all it was. So when you look at it from that vantage point, if you want to look at it glass half full this afternoon, it's the number 1 team in the country. Mm-hmm. Like LSU – as of today, it's the number 1 team, I think, across all 5 baseball polls.
I think so, yeah.
So you didn't lose to a team of chopped liver, and they've only lost – you added to one of their SEC losses. I think they've only lost 3 SEC games and only 5 games in Alex Box all year, and you were an inning or a hit away from making that 6-4. Like, it's one of those things where – you were so high after the Texas series that you just kind of expected to stroll into there and win. Well, teams don't do that. Jay Johnson has the number 1 club for a reason. So I'm not making too much out of, again, an extra inning loss in game 1, and the fact that you rallied and closed it out in game 3, or at least 1 in game 3, was big for me.
Yeah, I understand fans are tired of shoulda, woulda, coulda in terms of, oh, you were this close to taking what. But, I mean, it's just true. It was a wacky game. It finishes at 1:15, 1:30 in the morning or whatever it might be. I give credit to that fan base, the fact that place was still rocking the way it was at 1:15 in the morning. It's one of the best environments in college baseball for a reason. But Dave said that where you throw out Saturday, it was ugly in every capacity and every way the word goes, but you should have won game 1. And I get that doesn't count for anything. I get you lost the series, but you're up 4-2. And Aiden Jimenez he has an outing that he hasn't really had all year. And I know he struggled a little bit on Sunday as well. But, I mean, that's been a guy that you can rely on. And he gives up the game-tying run, 2 runs, to make it 4-4. I don't think the sky is falling, but I do think it's important, and I'm curious your perspective on this, to end on a high note. You have Tennessee coming in here. It's far from the same Tennessee team as the one that won it all last year. Important, at least from my perspective. I just throw the SEC tournament out. I don't really care what happens at Hoover. I think this is the last important thing you're going to see from this team, and it's got major seeding implications in terms of where this team's ultimately going to be when the NCAA tournament rolls around.
And I believe Tennessee has lost now 4 straight series, Jacob.
Yes.
So they're reeling right now. They're imploding. And they're trying to bounce back. And, of course, there's history with Coach Vitello and Coach Van Horn not just coaching together, but everyone remembers the back and forth from a few years ago. So this should be fun. I think Arkansas fans, just to take in one last regular season series here in Bob Walker Stadium before a couple weeks when the regional happened. We'll see if they get a super regional, if they advance past that. Yeah. So, how you just described it is, I think, accurate in the last really important game before they play in the regional the last week of May.
Yeah, and that's the key to look at right now with where Arkansas is hovering around, a little bit weaker of a non-conference slate. So, they've played well, but they are hovering around a top 8 seed. And obviously, if you're a top 8 seed, you get the opportunity to host a super no matter what. That's why this weekend's important. In terms of SEC seeding, it was big that they took the one that they did in Baton Rouge. As this team now, 1 series left in the regular season, if you're to boil it down to just confidence level in this group, how are you feeling about this team as we approach the postseason here?
You're top 15 in every category you want to be in: fielding, hitting, ERA. I think you got to be pretty happy with that, because last year, it was the offense. You've had some years where there's been other issues, and not every team is perfect. They're not. LSU's not perfect. LSU almost, again, lost that opening game to you, and maybe they lose the series, but they just went their way at home. A couple home plate like collisions that Arkansas was
Bang,
unfortunately on the other side. Yeah. So I think if you're an Arkansas fan, I think you feel like you're going to win this weekend, and you just have this bad taste in your mouth from the last 2 years, and you're trying to get that out. And the only way you do that is if you get by the regional, and we'll see if Arkansas is able to get a better draw than the softball team did, and then see if they can advance.
Man, that was crazy for softball to pull an Oklahoma State program that 5 straight College World Series. Not great in terms of that. And it was interesting. Coach Difel was expecting that. She said, yeah, just from a regional standpoint, we thought we would get St. Louis and Oklahoma State. But you're right. From a baseball perspective, you hope for a little more, trying to get out of a regional and get back to supers, and obviously far beyond that. It's going to be pitching. This offense is it's still with as much as people want to complain, it's still leading the SEC in every single metric. But if you get pitching performances like you did from Gage Wood and Landon Bottleshees starting wise in the coming weeks, it's going to be tough to advance too far.
And just a reminder, the team in 2021 that was number 1 didn't lose an SEC series all year. I guess won the SEC tournament, didn't make it out of the super regional. So Tennessee, a couple of years ago. Now I know they won it all last year, but I guess it was 2 or 3 years ago. It was number 1 in a ton of metrics, and they didn't beat Notre Dame in their super regional. So just because the accolades are on your side doesn't mean it's going to pan out, and vice versa. Just because your team isn't top dog in every major category you're going to be out doesn't mean you don't have a shot at Omaha, i.e. the 2022 team.
It's kind of,
it's just, it's weird.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but that's what I was going to say. That's the perfect flip side of it, is a team, that had to go on the road and ends up, performing the way they did and getting to Omaha. It's about playing your best baseball at the right time. Pick your cliche. Arkansas has got to do that regardless. Tennessee, the final regular season series of the season on deck for the Hogs. We'll see what Arkansas ultimately does, but that's all the time we have on this week's Hog Roundup. That is ESPN Arkansas's Ty Richardson. I am Jacob Morris, and we'll talk to you next week.